Hi everyone, my name is BREANNA Malone. I'm currently a senior and I'm representing Student Today, Alumni Tomorrow, aka Stats, and I'll be moderating tonight's panel. And I want to go ahead and start by saying thank you to all of our alum, career development, all students, and anyone who's on the panel tonight for organizing this event and supporting our women alumni. This event is for Women's History Month, so we wanted to highlight female small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I'm excited to introduce these 4 stars from Oglethorpe University. They all graduated from here not that long ago. And so for the attendees, please submit questions in the webinar and we will try to get to them the best we can. Just to let you guys know, this will be recorded, and for future references, you can see it on the Oglethorpe YouTube channel. So for our panelists, could you please state your name, what you majored here at Oglethorpe, and what's like your current job or anything that you're currently working on?
I can go first. My name is Alexandria Poer. I go by Lexi. I graduated in 2012 with a behavioral science and human resource management degree, and I am a digital content creator these days.
And I'm Dina Marto. I graduated in 2001, communications major, Spanish minor, and I am currently an entrepreneur. I've been in the music business and currently running an all women-led agency called C&D The Agency.
I'm Sarah Duff. I graduated in 2012. My degree was in medical illustration, and currently for my business, I do graphic design and marketing, and I've been working for myself for the last 6 years.
And I'm Kathryn Brooks. I graduated in '98 with a business administration degree with minors in economics and music. I took an entrepreneur to corporate America, back to entrepreneur route. I worked at the Coca-Cola company and currently lead my own company called She's Her Own CEO.
Thank you guys for all introducing yourselves. And again, welcome and thank you so much for coming and helping really like female students and students at Oglethorpe learn what they can do with their degree. So my first question is, what Oglethorpe experience, whether academia or outside the classroom, resonates with you, what you do today?
Yeah, I can start. So for me, I always reference the core program that we had at Oglethorpe. And the reason for that is I remember my freshman year thinking that, why am I being forced to take these classes? This is totally outside my major, nothing that at the time I was interested in. And one of the professors telling me that at the end of the day, the most important thing that I can gain from Oglethorpe is just becoming a well-rounded student and a well-rounded person that can walk into any room in the future and be able to hold a conversation with someone who might not have anything in common with me. And I think ultimately that has been the biggest takeaway for me from Oglethorpe, is always reflecting back on that and in networking opportunities, knowing that this person might not have something in common with me, but I'm able to have a conversation with them about some shared or, experience or tidbit that I learned back in the day in one of those, what I thought were random core classes. And that translating into just having the ability to speak to people from all walks of life.
And I would just piggyback on saying that I absolutely agree. The liberal arts curriculum was so helpful to me. I love that during my 4 years, I only had to really take one math class because I'm not strong in that. But I think the communication classes were so great. The public speaking classes, I use everything that I learned in those classes today, especially strong writing skills, reading, just understanding things as a whole. And I just loved, the other thing I loved about Oglethorpe was that it was small enough where you could really get in and get to know your teachers, professors, get to know the other people, and really have a great just community and know everybody, because it was not such a huge campus. So I love that.
I think I'm in the same boat of that, where I feel the size of Oglethorpe and being able to know my classmates and especially know my teachers. I've still kept in touch with a couple of them. I think that alone allowed me to feel like I had a space that I could feel comfortable in. I had people who were either like-minded or gave me opportunities to learn about other things. And I think it definitely came down to the size of the classrooms and the whole experience, and the fact it was such an intimate setting.
And I think beyond just speaking from a business major, things like the advanced business analytics, the advanced business writing, those will all serve you well. When I was at Oglethorpe, the A-Lab, the Oglethorpe Career Development Center was not there. So I would heavily encourage everyone out there to take advantage of what these resources offer you. Erin, Stephanie, everyone on the team is amazing and they want you to succeed. So if you're looking for that internship, go ahead and jump in and take advantage of that, but bring your best self, and they want you to succeed. So just keep that in mind as you move forward.
Thank you guys so much. This is the second or third panel I've moderated, and every time I hear one alumni is like, the Korp program. At least one alumni says it. So my next question is, how has networking benefited your career?
I will start with that because my entire career, basically, since I started working for myself, has been almost all networking. All of my clients that I have now with the graphic design and marketing, it's pretty much been either referrals or word of mouth. I've had to do very little advertising or like outreach to people, just because I have been able to establish knowing somebody at one company and then they leave to another company and that gets me an in. And then just having organic and natural conversations with people has really helped, honestly, just build my book of business. And I strongly recommend networking. And it doesn't even have to feel like in that whole traditional network sense where you like pass out a business card or anything. It could literally just be talking to somebody next to you at a bar or something, and you don't realize that they have something that you could benefit from. So I just think organic conversation can get you a lot of good places.
Yeah, and for me personally, before I worked for myself, I worked at Porsche Cars North America, and I got that internship through another Oglethorpe alumni at the time. And then after I ended up working there, we were able to get over 12 other students to come in and be a part of the company as well in various roles across the board, which that was solely dependent on networking. As Sarah said, everything that has gotten me kind of off the ground with the business I have today was because of fellow alumni. You know, from creation of my logo, creation of my website, you know, mentoring me when I first began my social media channels was all different alumni that I stayed in touch with and connected with. And then for me, like networking now, my philosophy is never saying no to an opportunity to meet someone else and form a relationship, because you just never know when that relationship will be handy.
And I second all of that. My entire, especially being in the entertainment business, it's all about your relationships. That's how it's built. I've never, like you said, advertised my business or anything of that nature. When I was in college, when I was at Oglethorpe, I was networking so much that by the time I graduated, I already had job offers because I just utilized that. But I want to tell people that oftentimes you're thinking about when you're networking up, but you can network across to your peers because they are the next leaders of tomorrow. So you want to make sure you're building a strong foundation with your peers and your classmates, and like you guys said, developing those relationships to utilize later.
Yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add on to that. Every relationship, every part-time job, every restaurant industry job, every department store job, every internship is an opportunity to network. And as we've seen over the last couple years, especially during the shutdown, where we weren't meeting, you know, as frequently in person, those networking relationships that we built over time really came into play. So, you know, who knows what the future holds, but my advice would be just treat every connection as a potential network. Respect that person, respect the connection, always bring your best self forward.
Yeah, and I was going to finish. I remember, my mom growing up always told me it's, the old saying is who you know, or, it can always come in handy who you might know, but she always would add to that. It's also who knows you. And she was like, I know a lot of people, but do they know me in return? And I think that has stuck with me as well. It's just like you all said, forming those relationships, because it doesn't only matter who you know, but it's whether or not they know who you are and kind of follow your story, and are able, you never know.
And I would just say, when you come to the table and you're networking, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So treat it that way. Don't always ask people for things all the time without maybe offering something that you can do for them. I think that's super important. Yeah.
I also think it's important to remember that networking isn't necessarily part of the short game either. It's really important to keep long-term relationships. So if a person, you may not be able to help a person currently, or they might not be able to help you in the moment, but I have had connections that have gone 3-4 years where it's come up out of nowhere, and we remember that, oh, this person does this, and it's benefited. So I definitely think nourishing those relationships is incredibly important too.
And I think, sorry, I know we're going on about networking, but it's so important.
It is.
I was going to say, you don't have to allow it to be something that intimidates you or stresses you out also, because I think at the end of the day, we're all humans and we all know we have stuff going on in our lives. But for me, it's always, like I said, never saying no to an opportunity, because I don't know who I might meet, who at the time might, not have much to bring or, give me in exchange. But in a year or two, I might have a new endeavor where that's of value. And then, that was what I was going to say. I've forgotten the rest of my train of thought, but.
Thank you guys so much. Again, this is to honor Women's History Month, and you guys are all very beautiful, successful women. How do you, as a woman, assert your presence as a meeting or conference or any type of event where you have to make yourself known and represent who you are as a person?
I mean, I can just say that when I'm at a table, and I'm in a male-dominated industry, so I'm always having to play with the boys, right? And I'm oftentimes the only woman in the room. And I just feel like being your authentic self, showing up as everything, the essence of what a woman is, being loving, kind, nurturing, graceful, all of those wonderful things. I don't think you have to try to be anything else or whatever that's not natural to you. And so for me, I just try to stay true to myself, my integrity, show up being honest and authentic. And I think that always wins.
Yeah, I too, like I said, I started in automotives, which absolutely is a male-driven industry. So almost every room I was in as well was filled with men. And a lot of times, especially in that industry, I was looked at as if I might not have like the same level of expertise as everyone else in the room. And in that environment, my philosophy was just knowing that I needed to work twice as hard to get to whatever my goals were at the time. And then fast forward to now, I'm in a heavily, the digital content creation world is very heavily women filled. And I think what I found in that environment is that finding other women who want to support and uplift you is equally as important, because unfortunately, we're in this climate where a lot of times women view other women as competition instead of, supporting one another, because, we are a team and we should be a united front and helping each other move women as a whole, further along than we are today.
And I would just have to say with that, the agency that I co-founded with my business partner. We both came from different industries. We came together, but the whole premise and the foundation of it is to mentor the next generation of women leaders. So we try to give opportunity to minority women, and we try to mentor and help train them in work experiences, because I came from a world where I never had a woman mentor. All my mentors were men. So I wanted to make that difference for the next generation of women. And I think that's so important that you touched on that point, Lexi, about women being competition and not supporting each other. That is like one of my main things that I try to do is women empowerment and make sure we're uplifting each other.
I'll go. I joined the Coca-Cola company pretty much 1 month after I graduated from Oglethorpe, and it was in corporate finance. So obviously that's a very male-dominated industry and department. But I never approached a room as an underdog, and that's not to say that I didn't know that I was the least experienced or the only female or the youngest one. It just meant that I knew I was approaching the room as someone that was prepared. I had done my homework, and I took accountability and responsibility for my position and what I was expected to bring to the table. So I think having that attitude really can differentiate you. Just walk into the room, know that you're not the underdog. You belong there. You've earned the right to be at the table and to participate and to contribute. And I think if you bring that, your confidence will soar.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I am in the design space, I feel like a good mix of both men and women. And so I think where in my position, I've had a lot of opportunity to let my work speak for itself, because a lot of the times I'm behind the scenes. I just make the designs, I make the graphics, and then more times people on the other end are the ones presenting it. So when I show up, I have to make sure that my work speaks for itself, that I can speak confidently on what I know. I have to be a subject matter expert. I have to be able to believe in what it is that I am creating, because I think it's incredibly important that if I believe in it, I can stand by it, I can speak to it, and then that alone will translate across the board for the people who are then receiving it. So I think having the confidence, knowing your importance and like how your role plays a bigger role into everything is really important for like what you do, especially as a woman, and just allowing yourself to take up that space because you know what you're doing.
I know, to kind of like further this question a little bit, you all kind of touched about like, but many of your jobs like starting off at some point were male dominated. Aside from having to like recognize that you are a woman and you might seem inferior to your peers, what's a skill that you have that you use to help push that on? Like, what's a personal thing about you that you use to help like further yourself in your workplace?
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a strength that most women possess is the ability to adapt. We are, like the creators of life and like all of these things. And, we are able to wear many hats at all times. And I think, mother, entrepreneur, sister, friend, all of these titles. And I think having the ability to always change and at a rapid pace is something that we bring to the table. So yeah, that's where I would start with that.
I was actually going to say something similar about being able to show up and take a lot of things on and be able to wear many hats. I feel like that's one place where I've actually, when I started off my career, I was not doing graphic design. I was actually a production assistant at a medical illustration company. And I was ready and willing to take on more challenges. I saw opportunities in order to advance my career in ways. I was, at a point where I would take on more because I saw what it would do, where it would take me. And eventually I started finding comfort and confidence in a space that I could create for myself. So I went from a production assistant to marketing to brand design to specifically focusing on like creative design and marketing. And that's ultimately what gave me the confidence to start my own business. And it was driven by clashing with a male boss, but you know, adversity creates positivity sometimes. So
I think women are incredibly goal oriented. We hear that messaging sometimes in the media that maybe that's not the case, but in my experience, some of the most focused executives and business leaders and small business leaders have been female. And I think it kind of brings together all the skills and traits that the women bring to the table. And one of them is, you know, that inclusionary mindset that, you know, kind of seeing what the parts are that make the whole, you know, what needs to be done to achieve that goal, whether it's, you know, people, processes, resources, financial, whatever those parts are. I think women are uniquely capable of kind of seeing that big picture. And so I would just say the women are very goal focused, and keep that in mind. Don't let anyone tell you that's not the case.
And I would just add that I show up and I outwork my counterparts and stay very organized and do it all without a major ego. Is a really important thing. I think that a lot of women bring to the table, and it's something about us when we just do our little wand and we make things happen that a lot of times, for me, I built a recording studio in Midtown Atlanta, and I was able to get so many different talent in one room that normally wouldn't work together because I created a family environment and community that I think it's kind of special that a woman really brings to the table.
Thank you guys so much. Another question is, how have you guys advocated for yourself in interpersonal relationships or like compensation? Like, what have things that you guys have like done to help advocate and like push your careers along?
Yeah, for me, so currently in this industry, it's so new that it is very difficult to know your worth. There's also a lack of transparency within the content creation industry. And I think for me personally, I have had to advocate in the sense that I can't sit idly and be scared or fearful to ask my peers, you know, what they're doing in their business and how I can take what they're doing and compare it to mine as far as like knowing what I should be charging for specific deliverables and such. So really just being bold in the sense that, you know, asking for help and asking for mentorship and guidance from others that are within my industry has, you know, what has gotten me to this point. And that is what I noticed like is a big difference between myself and others that aren't succeeding quite as much as they'd like to, is just being able, again, going kind of back to networking, to ask people, you know, can you give me insight into what you're doing? And here's what I can provide you. Can we work together to get to XYZ goals that we've set by making this more transparent of a process? And then therefore we build all of us up rather than kind of sit stagnant and let brands or whomever we're working with be the ones in control.
Then, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I fully agree with the transparency. I think, especially as women, there has typically been taboo around talking about how much money you make, talking about what you think you should be making. And I mean, across the board, it's so often that, of course, there's the wage gap. Everyone knows about it. And the reason why is because oftentimes women are discouraged to speak about what they want. So I think the transparency, having open and honest conversations with other people in your industry, because I work for myself, I have to determine my rates. I have to determine what my time is worth. I have to also understand like what market trends are, do the research, be able to advocate fully for myself. And the biggest thing, and it's also one of the hardest I've had to learn over my career, is to be willing to walk away and not undermine my pay or my worth just because I feel like I have to get a job. Like if I've been doing it for so long that I can kind of get a gut feeling when either a client is going to be difficult or hard or pushback or whatnot. And so it's knowing what I can bring to the table and what my time is worth in order to be able to say, this is a good fit, this isn't a good fit. And I mean, being my biggest advocate is what I have to be since it's only me right now.
I love that. You don't, every deal is not for you, right? And you have to be, and it's a blessing to be in that position to be able to like pick and choose who you want to work with now. I would say I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So when I was working at a major record label at Island Def Jam, and I was there for 6 years, and I was being looked over probably in certain promotions and things that I felt like I needed to, that I deserved to get, I decided to leave and build my own business and go back to being an entrepreneur and create my own table to house the people that I want to work with and to kind of set those rates and determine my own destiny so that I'm not just trying to climb the corporate ladder and be, you know, and just being able to do what you want to do on your own, and having that ownership is so big to me and it's so important. And it's really hard to walk away from your 401k and your biweekly direct deposits, but I did so that I could have more say so, and I wouldn't be scared that every time there was like a layoff going on that my job was up, that I created my own world. So yeah.
And I know like when I was, because obviously there's going to be students on here that are either planning to or going into the corporate world. And my advice for those students would be, you know, I'm a firm believer that like transparency when it comes to, like you said, Sarah, salary and such, it puts more power into the employee's hands, the more transparency there is. So kind of that old mindset of like not talking about your pay and all of that, to me, puts the power in the corporations. So I did have conversations with people I was comfortable with asking, you know, what are you making, to know and make sure that I was getting fair pay, because especially as like a woman of color, that is an additional fear that I have, you know, is not being properly compensated for multiple reasons. And so I would suggest, you know, forming relationships with people that you know are in a similar level with you within the company, having those difficult conversations. And then if you realize there is like a discrepancy, not being scared to ask your direct report, you know, can you explain why this is different? And if so, what do I need to do XYZ in order to get to where I want to be pay wise or benefit wise, just for those who potentially are going into, you know, not the entrepreneurial route, because I'm in the same boat as you guys now. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, I think any company is completely fine underpaying their employees if they're not asking for a raise, and they will continue to do it. It doesn't matter, even as a freelancer or if you work for somebody else, somebody is paying your bills. And unless you are willing to increase your rates as, you know, inflation happens, the prices across the board are going up. So I feel like if companies can get away with paying less because they don't have employees causing disruption, and especially if those employees aren't talking to one another to then understand that there's a discrepancy happening, changes won't be made. So it's important to speak up.
Well, and like Dina said, you know, one of the things I was told when I was working in corporate was, well, the name you get to put on your resume, that is like of value, and you can leave here and get XYZ when you go to your next positions elsewhere. Which then, you know, at the end of the day, that was the reality of the company that I was working with. And I had to then take that, like you said, and make a decision as far as, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life or for the next decade or whatever that was? Or am I, you know, can I make an informed decision and explore other opportunities?
And just as a practical tip in the corporate environment, when I managed a fairly large team at Coca-Cola, one thing I noticed is, you know, obviously when you work in a large corporation, you're going to have to participate in some kind of cyclical career conversation, professional performance development conversation. And that conversation ultimately drives your raise, your future role potential, whether or not you're put on a high potential development list. It drives a lot of conversations. So that one conversation, though it should be happening intermittently, monthly, weekly, whatever, typically in large corporations, it happens once a year. And one thing I noticed was a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my direct reports would wait until the very last minute to prepare for that meeting. They would wait till last minute to prepare the document, to think through it, to think about their positioning. And what it turned into was kind of like a 5 to 10 hour cram session to kind of, well, let me recap everything I've done in the last year or the last 2 years or whatever. And then hopefully, jettison myself to some, 3-step up promotion. So my advice was always, keep that document, whatever it looks like in your corporation or your organization, keep it open on your desktop. And as you complete things, or as you're, maybe it's a daily cadence, a weekly cadence, a month, whatever your cadence is, open it up and add to it. Think about it, reflect on it, and start building that story so that, not only do you have a great elevator statement, but you're also prepared kind of for that, quarterly, annual cadence at your corporate level, and you can sell yourself and your story even better.
I love that. And have those conversations more often, right?
As a student, I think this is a really important question for me, as well as like other students for your future. What would you all say, whether it is like students who possibly have a job after graduation, or students who are kind of in a gray area, like maybe I'm going to do this, maybe not. What is a piece of advice you would give students for their first step after graduation?
I just have to jump in here because this is so important to me. When I was at Oglethorpe, I took a PR class, and that class like lit the fire of me starting my own business at 19 years old. I started an entertainment PR firm while I was at Oglethorpe, and I was on the programming board, and I helped with the Stomp the Lawn events and all sorts of things throughout the year. And Oglethorpe ended up actually having to pay my company to book the talent for the concert. And that's what I was doing while I was still graduating with over a 3.5, right? It's still doing my curriculum, still learning, studying, but I was out there still making moves while I was in college, because life starts now. It's not when you graduate, it's currently. So this is the best time for you to get out there, get an internship, do trial and error, figure out what you really want to do, get a mentor, have somebody start helping, guiding your journey in your career, and really just starting this while you're there. Life starts today. It's now. It's not when. Don't wait for these things to happen, because by the time I graduated, I had been handpicked and hired by L.A. Reid to work on his A&R team at Island Def Jam when Jay-Z was president. I didn't have to apply for that job. So I just want everybody that's listening to know, like, your career is now. It starts now. So get out there, do an internship, figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like, fail fast, fail forward, do it really quickly so you can get to the next steps of your life.
To your point, I definitely fully agree with that. I think it's also important that people understand that what you are doing, like when you graduate, when you're in college, it does not define what your future is going to be in 10 years. I am definitely not in a medical illustration field, but I think every decision and every step that we take is a stepping stone into discovering, and you could, be a second career change halfway, like 10, 15 years down the line. There's never a timeline for what your career should be, but I do think it's important that you take advantage of the opportunities that you have and use them to propel you to whatever next steps they may be.
Yeah, and I think that goes to the point we said earlier about not turning down an opportunity. I guarantee if I do this panel again in 3 years, I'm going to be doing something totally different. I started out when I left Portia, I was like, I want to do a baby business. And I built an online like e-commerce website and was selling like handmade organic baby products. that lasted probably a year and a half. And I realized while doing that, that what I was most intrigued with was the social media aspect. And that had I not started that brand, I would have never gotten to understand social media and therefore wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. And even still, like the social media, the content I create today is 180 degrees different than what I was creating 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I started. So just always, be ready to pivot. This world more than ever is fast moving. Nothing stays the same. Every industry across the board is changing by the hour, and just having that flexibility and, eagerness to learn something new at every opportunity you get is huge, because you have no idea what is going to fulfill you and fill up your cup 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, or a month from now.
Yeah, and to your point, the way and the speed at which things are changing, women are very resilient.
Yep.
So I think it speaks to a lot about women, about how we're able to adapt so quickly to the changing times. And I think that's the reason why you see so many women who are accelerating and on top of things like this.
Absolutely.
And I love the point about starting now and thinking about yourself as a brand. So a brand, obviously we all know what a brand is, but it doesn't just apply to products and services, it applies to you as a person. So think about why a brand is important and why those brands that you respect are important. And then think about yourself that same way, because that brand is your logo, it's your reputation, and it's also your employability factor. So every communication you have, kind of everything we've talked about, networking, kind of that skill building, look at the coursework you're taking now, all of that plays into your personal brand. So as you think about that, think about your own attributes, your own reputation, and your own kind of desirability and affinity in your employability, and do that now.
Yeah, and I think, social media, an easy way to start is, like you said, building your brand, which is you from now. Because, one thing, like with starting Ivy and Simone baby brand that I did back in the day, I realized that I am the product, because at the end of the day, whatever I decide to do, it requires like social currency, as I like to refer to it, in order for me to do that. So today I do brand partnerships, which is how I monetize my business, but I might decide to start, a clothing line, or who knows down the line, but I can utilize that foundation that I've built on social media and that following that I've like organically and authentically grown, and, take those eyeballs to expose them to whatever business opportunity I decide to pursue down the line. So whether it's a product or it's just yourself, be conscious of your image, what you're showing the world, and yeah, go ahead and start building that now.
I was just going to say, like, it's about thinking about what you're posting before you're posting it, because just remember that it lives on the internet forever. It might not seem like it, but just because you're in college, something that you do now could affect a decision or an opportunity later. Employers are looking at your social media as a major part of whether they want to hire you or not. And so just be really conscious of that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm an advocate. I truly believe that like social currency is going to be, of such value in the future. And like, I couldn't agree more to be conscious of that this generation more than any before. That's so important. So.
To bring it back kind of to home, especially with you guys mentioning alums and like the community that you built here's Oglethorpe, and probably for like possibly all of you, the community you still have for like people from Oglethorpe. How have you connected with other women alums and like kept their community outside of the university?
Yeah, I know for me, sorry, Sarah.
You go ahead.
Are you
You're
sure?
already starting. Yeah.
I was gonna say, for me, like motherhood was a huge turning point for finding and reconnecting with a lot of alumni. you know, when I guess I had kids earlier than people that were in my grade. So I reached out and connected with a lot of girls that were a few grades ahead of me and became closer to them. And really just like fostered those relationships and different alumni that I have like exchanged with over the years and formed different relationships with, just to, like we said, networking being so important. And but for me, it was really like motherhood. That was something that I needed a community and wanted to build a tribe with. And I knew that Oglethorpe, there was a lot of people that I had similar, you know, interests and experiences with, that translated into reconnecting and developing those relationships as I left college.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think for me, I mean, Oglethorpe attracts a certain mindset and mentality and like a likeness of people. And then you realize you have a lot of common factors with people that you may have been in class with and never realized that you could have gotten along with them. And social media is a powerful thing, where there are some people that I had followed since college and realized, I really like you. Like we never really had opportunities to get along or like to hang out or whatever. And I've reached out to people, I've connected similar in the sense of motherhood, where people are going through similar life stages. And I mean, thankfully, no one's just been like, oh, I don't want to talk to you, but everyone's very welcoming, and you realize that you have connections, and it's just great because you have that shared space of like, oh, we all went to Oglethorpe. We know about experience. We know there's things that happened in a small college field that you wouldn't have gotten at a big one. So you kind of have the bond in that experience, and it's just turned into more organic friendships over the years, and it's great.
Yeah, like Sarah said, the nice thing about Oglethorpe is you feel like you're a part of a family. So even if you weren't very close to someone in college, it's, you know, it's such an intimate setting on campus that you still feel like you know that person, even if you weren't the closest of friends at the time. So yeah, same. There's so many people that I've connected with after college that I hardly had conversations with during school, and they're some of my closest friends today. So
Yeah, just a similar comment, you know, keeping in touch with the people you knew while at Oglethorpe, or while you know at Oglethorpe today, so important. But, you know, just to add on to what else has been said, is I've met so many people that have had that shared Oglethorpe experience, and we didn't go to school together. They were generally at Coca-Cola. They were, you know, in graduation years way above me, or before me. But just to connect and have that shared experience. And there's so many ways to connect, you know, through the alumni, you know, relationships. I serve on the President's Advisory Council, so I've actually conducted business with other people on that council, people that I obviously didn't go to school with, and it's just been a shared resource, a shared value system, a shared commitment, and kind of that similar approach of, you know, wanting that small, high touch university experience in a very large city, and in a very large city with a lot of opportunities, both corporate, entrepreneurial, healthcare, you know, you name it, it's there. So value the relationships you have now, but just know that that's not done. You're not done growing those Oglethorpe relationships. You'll continue to meet them no matter what city you move to, and no matter where you go career-wise.
I will also say it's really funny how Oglethorpe connects us to where you were saying in different graduation classes. Like I said, I do graphic design and marketing, and one of the things that I offer is corporate PowerPoint design. Tim Sisopoulos is an Oglethorpe alumni, and I didn't even realize I was working on a deck for him until it came across. And I actually ended up seeing him one year, I think at like an alumni, people came back to talk about something, and I saw him, and I was like, I worked on that deck. And it was such a small world that something like that connected us.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that it's a special thing when you find out somebody went to Oglethorpe, and it's like that special connection. And even not just your peers, but also the professors. I still keep in touch with some of the professors like Dr. Rosenthal and Dr. Moman. We do actually business together. So yeah, it's really cool.
My business accountant actually ended up going to Oglethorpe, and I had no idea until we started talking about it. He was like, "Oh yeah, I went to this small school in Atlanta," and I was like, "Oh, I went to a college in Atlanta too." He's like, "Yeah, it's Oglethorpe. You probably never heard of it." And he was my accountant for 2 years before we finally found that out.
Same. I had we were having my daughter's 5th birthday, and there was one of the moms of the kids that was at the birthday party. The daughter goes to school with my daughter, and we were talking about school, and she happened to be an Oglethorpe alumni, and I was like, what a small world.
So I want to just go ahead, because we don't have much time left, to start wrapping this up and say thank you guys so much. It's so amazing to hear about all your different stories and take all your advice, especially like for me, I am a graduating senior and I'm a woman who's like in the future starting her own like company. And so it's like hearing this, like hearing advice and hearing like how not only that like I can use my professors, but as like my alums, because like, I hear your stories and I think they're all amazing. And knowing that coming from such a small school and like being able to still do like big things and have your big dreams is an amazing thing to hear. And I think all female students especially should hear it, because like I don't think any of us really know where we're gonna go from here. And so thank you so much for your advice and your help. And I really do appreciate it as a student personally, and I'm sure that like every other student would love to hear all of your stories. But do you guys have like any last words for like students, advice, like anything you think they should know this?
I'll just say, figure out what you're really good at doing naturally, what you like to do, and focus in on that, and the money will come afterwards. So just don't focus on the money, making money, focus on what you're really good at doing naturally and do that.
Yep. And for me, positive visualization is so important. And I am a firm believer in like manifesting your own destiny. And so I would just say, remain positive. Don't be scared to set ambitious goals. My husband likes to refer to me as relentlessly driven. And I would just encourage you all to be relentlessly driven towards whatever your goals are.
Yeah. And I think nourish relationships, follow up with people, just do your check-ins, make sure you stay connected, be authentic, and, give as much as you can take.
And I'll just end with a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. So what you do speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. So as you think about that, think about your personal brand, think about all of your actions, think about everything all of these ladies have brought to the table today, talking about, your coursework, how you present yourself, how you network, how you communicate, how you send an email. I mean, it starts with simple things to very large, complex business deals. So everything makes a difference, and your actions start now.
I was going to say, just to like allow anyone to connect that wants to connect, obviously social media is the easiest for me personally. My accounts are all Strolling in the Suburbs, and everything is fully spelt out. And then my email, I'm always happy to like talk to anyone that might want to connect. My email is Lexi, Lexi at strollinginthesuburbs.com. So I would love to connect with anybody.
And for me, you can find me on my website, dinamarto.com, DINAMARTO.com. You can contact me there. I always respond, and also on social media at Miss Marto, MISSMARTO. And I always respond there as well. I believe in responding to everybody that reaches out, no matter what, even if I can't help or I can help. So looking forward to talking to everybody.
Yeah, and I officially launched my new business that transitioned over earlier this year. You can find it. You can reach me at Sarah, SARAH, at Korp Creative, KORP creative.com. And I am very quick to respond. So if I don't respond, then send out a search party.
And then finally, you can find me across all social at She's Her Own CEO. So it's SHESHEROWN CEO. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, as well as the business name She's Her Own CEO. And you can find my website, she'sherown.ceo.com.
Thank
mean,
you guys so much.
it's lovely getting to know you ladies on this panel.
It's amazing. Thank you. Likewise.